think your job is rough, tired of emails, meetings, and managers who think urgent means now, let us take a break from the modern world and travel back in time to the Middle Ages, a world of castles, knights, and some of the most disgusting jobs in human history. You might complain about your 9-to-5, but at least you don't work knee-deep in sewage, wrestle rats for science, or cry at strangers' funerals for money. Welcome to the grimmiest jobs of the medieval world, where being poor wasn't your only problem. Staying alive was. Let's begin with something elegantly awful. The royal barn leecher. Picture this. It's dawn. Fog covers the fields. Women accused of gossip or nagging were punished by being forced to wear the skull, espridle, a horrifying iron mask that locked around the head and clamped down on the tongue. Say hello to the plague rat tester. In the days of the Black Death, people didn't know what caused the plague, but they noticed rats were always nearby. During plague outbreaks, families were locked inside their homes, sometimes with the sick and the dead, their clothes dumped outside and picked up by one unlucky soul. These washers boiled infected garments in vats of lye, scrubbing until their fingers blistered. Some caught the plague themselves. Others lost their hearing from boiling fumes. Remember this. At least you're not chasing plague rats. At least you're not scraping blood off a torture device. At least you're not bathing in cow leeches' teeth or human waste. Yet they kept working because dirty clothes didn't stop, not even for death. So, naturally, they hired poor peasants to catch rats and test them for illness. No, that's not a typo. Some medieval cities believed that public shaming cured diseases, so certain poor workers were hired to walk through markets yelling, "Come see the man with the largest wart." They held signs, they pointed, they got spat on. But the worst part, they were raw, brutal, and disgustingly real. And behind every knight in shining armor, there was some poor guy knee-deep in filth, making it all possible. And don't forget to subscribe for more miserable medieval madness. They were often forced to show their own skin diseases, to scare away evil spirits. Imagine being paid to humiliate yourself daily, and having to do it barefoot in winter with a bell. How? Sometimes by observing their behavior, sometimes by letting the rats bite livestock or the tester himself. These people risked their lives for a few coins, catching diseased rodents and watching them twitch in cages. The irony, these testers probably spread the plague more than they stopped it, but someone had to do it. And in the words of one unlucky tester, "If I die, can my son take my place? He's good with chickens." You've got Wi-Fi, indoor plumbing, and shoes. You're doing just fine. But after the punishment ended, someone had to clean the blood, spit, and yes, tooth fragments off the metal. Dentistry didn't really exist back then, but you could pay a traveling surgeon to yank out a bad tooth in the town square. No anesthesia, no sterilization, just a man with iron tongs and a loud voice. Step right up, tooth out in one pull. But the apprentice, he had the real nightmare job, holding down the screaming patient, mopping up the blood, chasing down the teeth that flew across the square, and occasionally getting vomited on. Some patients thrashed so violently, they broke the chair. Others fainted, all left screaming. But the apprentice couldn't scream. He had to clean, quietly and fast. That's where our unfortunate friend comes in. His job, scrub and polish these tortured devices, sometimes with a rag, sometimes with sand, and always under the watch of a nobleman who'd say things like, "Make sure it shines. We're using it again tomorrow." Just imagine the smell and the guilt. Yet this man couldn't say a word. He was just the cleaner. Inside the barn, you're surrounded by cows, goats, and chickens. In medieval society, appearances mattered, even in death. The more people cried at your funeral, the more respected you were. Enter the hired mourner. Your job: wail, scream, collapse, onto the coffin if needed. These actors for hire, often peasants, were paid a few coins to sob dramatically over people they'd never met. Some even carried onions in their pockets to help them cry. One mourner was said to scream so loudly, a priest fainted. But the real tragedy, these workers were often hungrier than the corpse, yet they wept like they'd lost a brother. All for a bit of bread and maybe half a boiled egg. And you, poor soul, are holding a wooden box filled with leeches. The job no one wanted, but someone always had to do. I present to you the Gong Farmer. Sounds innocent, doesn't it? But this was the man who emptied castle toilets at night with a shovel into buckets and then dragged those buckets out of the city to dump them in pits. Castles didn't have plumbing. They had holes in the wall that led to deep, dark cellars. And after weeks of buildup, someone had to climb in. The smell was overpowering, so strong that it was said to knock grown men unconscious. Explosive gases, toxic fumes, disease, all in a day's work. Some farmers tied cloths soaked in lavender to their faces, hoping to block the smell. It didn't help, but the pay, triple the average laborer's wage, because you'd need more than money to survive that life. You'd need a steel stomach, ... and no sense of smell. That's your job, sticking slimy little suckers onto animals to balance their bodily humors. Because back then, if a cow had a fever, it wasn't infection. It was too much hot bile. The solution, bloodletting on a cow. With leeches, every morning you'd pull leeches from jars, slap them on goat bellies, and pray none slithered up your sleeve. You were always wet, always bitten, and always blamed when the sheep still died. Oh, and your reward, a sack of barley, if you were lucky. Now let us move on to a different kind of tragedy. The funeral faker. Now, let's descend quite literally into the worst job on this list. Let's take a sharp turn from filth to cruelty. Meet the scold's bridal keeper in some medieval towns. Next up, a job that makes modern pest control look like a dream. But we're not done, because pain, as always, is profitable. Meet the Tooth-Yanker's apprentice. Let's not forget the laundry washer of the quarantine zone. And finally, the wart crier. So, how's your job sounding now? No matter how hard your boss pushes, how cold your coffee gets, or how many meetings could have been emails, the Middle Ages weren't noble, they weren't romantic. So give yourself some credit. If you enjoyed this journey through the worst jobs in history, give this video a like, drop a comment,